Hello, my name is Mercy Grace Munduru, and this is my story. I was born on 8th March 1988 in Kuluva Hospital in Arua to Reverend Canon Stephen Gelenga and Florence Gladys Abuko. My dad is Reverend, so he has spent most of his life in the service of Christ. And my mom, well, she was a primary teacher, and over the years she has grown in her career in the education sector. From being a primary teacher, now she is a principal of a teachers training college in Nakaseke. I was born and raised in Vara, around the cathedral area, because obviously my father was working at the diocese, so we spent most of our childhood around Vara. Up to this day, our family home is there. We settled there, although originally I'm a Kakwa by tribe. And most of my childhood really centers around Arua. Right from my education life, I went to school in Arua Demonstration School for my primary school, where in about P6 I was a head girl at the school. And then I joined Munigals Secondary School for my senior 1 to senior 4. And then I went to Seroma Christian University, where I did my A-level. And then I took a break for a year because we had an extended holiday our year. So I joined Uganda Christian University for where I did my bachelor's in law and graduated as a lawyer 4 years later. And then I also went on to Sydney Law School, where I was a fellow in transitional justice. And I'm pursuing my master's in Uganda Christian University in the area of law, oil and gas studies. I am a human rights lawyer, I'm a business person, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and I'm a sports lover, and also I do sports administration as well. My story is a story of both pain and joy, but I must say for the most part, each of the parts of my story have made me who I am today. Having been raised from a family that I would not say was well-to-do, we had to experience both sides of the coin. My parents were not so rich, neither were they so poor. We were just middle class, I would say, according to Ugandan's standard of living. So being that, we had to endure both the good and the bad. But I would say basically we had what was enough to take us through our days, to help us to get the basics of life, whether it's healthcare, education, and just our childhood life. My life was also more centered around church and church activities, so I spent a lot of my life in Sunday school, where I used to sing and also do ministry as a child. Until I was in secondary school, I was still in ministry. Even up to my senior 6, I used to sing in the choir because that was just something I was raised to do. So having been born in a family like that, I always knew that I had to work hard to earn a living for myself, because definitely you'd look at your parents, you'd look at how far they go to make your life comfortable, and you'd feel like you needed to reward them. The kind of family I'm raised in is not one where you have a choice to be unsuccessful. You're pushed to the edge. You have to work hard. Like, there's just no two ways about it. You have to work. You have to demonstrate that you're doing something for yourself. It doesn't have to be an office job, but you have to be doing something, because my parents are the kind that will always push you to keep doing something. So because of that kind of background, I always, every time I got a holiday, I always wanted to do something to, earn a living. So the first time I really worked was in my senior 4 VAC. I think we did a research work with some researchers, and then there was some gig at Electoral Commission. At the time, they were paying us daily, to fill data and to update registers. And then I went back for my A-level. When I came back for my A6 back, I could not sit home like the rest of the people, because at that time I remember my dad was out of his job, and then my mom was doing her master's, and my siblings were still at school, so life was a bit tough and we had to prioritize. So I chose to come back to Arua, and when I came to Arua, I was living with my grandmom and my aunties. I was the only child at home at that time, so I had to get a job. At the time, Airtel now, which by then was called Celtel, was recruiting salespeople. They needed people to sell SIM packs, and so you'd be earning a commission. So we went and interviewed, and then I made it through, and we started to do that. So the more SIM packs you sold, the more money you made. So because I needed the money so desperately, I used to go over and above to make sure that I sell my SIM packs. And I think in our group, I used to sell the most SIM packs. I would go to the field and come back about 3 times every day. So my sales were always good. And somehow our supervisor at the time really picked interest in me, because I was very, very hardworking. I used to push myself to that age. And every money that I would make, I would put it into a business. So I remember during that year, I started a kiosk, which until now is still sitting in front of my parents' gate. That was where I put like groceries for people in the community to buy stuff. So my auntie then would sell the kiosk, and the money that she would make would be what would buy for us food. For me, I'll just wake up, go to work, and make sure that the kiosk is stocked, so that we would be, the money I get from my sales is the money I put back in business. So I remember one of the girls who used to sit at the front desk got a challenge, so she had to leave, and they needed to hire somebody for the front desk. And I remember our regional manager then decided that they wouldn't hire somebody, and he felt I was good enough to sit there. I didn't have confidence in myself at that time, because we are salesperson. These are girls who are, very fine. They look very beautiful. They're at campus. They finished actually campus. They're well-to-do. And you just, who is in your vacation, you're selling, and somebody actually thinks you're good enough to sit at the counter. So they considered me, and I took up the opportunity from being a salesperson to the front desk. And at that time, we were 2 girls on the sales team, and that friend of mine one evening told me I should escort her to a radio station where she was going for an interview as a presenter. So I escorted her. It's Nile FM, which is still there. So I escorted her to Nile FM, and I remember sitting at the reception as my friend went for her interview. So the station manager at the time, who was also the program manager, came. He found me sitting and just started to chat me up. And so as we spoke, he had seen me before at Celtel, because they used to go to buy airtime and everything there. So when he spoke to me, he told me, "You have a radio voice. I think you can do radio." I told him, no, I can't do radio. I've never thought about it. So he said, "No, I actually think you should come and we do a voice test." So I told him, "No, but I just escorted my friend." He said, "No, you just come. If your voice works, then we'll use you to voice for us adverts, and I'll be paying you a fee." So I went to the production room, and then we did voiceovers, and he thought I had a good voice, and he told me, "Give me your number, I'll call you." So I gave him my number, and I forgot all about it. In 2 days, he called me and said, "Come and voice an advert." So I went, I voiced an advert. And then when the other managers heard, they said, "I think we need to hire her to read news." So I was working at Celtel during the day. At lunchtime, I would have to come and read news, and then I go back to work. So eventually, they offered me a salary which was a bit better than what I was getting then. So I had to quit that job and then come full-time to radio. First, they put me on a morning show where I was working with a couple of other people. There's a gentleman called Ken Sebina, rest in peace. And then we used to have a sports segment on the show, so I was mostly doing the sports, and also the first hour segment, which was really a mix of everything. So when I excelled at that, they gave me my own show, and in a year you had to produce your show. You didn't have a producer who would produce for you music and allocate your time. So you had to produce for yourself your show. You'd sit alone in the studio and you do as you should. Other radio stations have a producer, somebody else who does the music and produces your show, and then your work is just to speak. But in a year, you had to do everything by yourself. So we were trained to do that, and we had very good technicians who took us through how to produce and how to, manage every aspect of a show. And I really settled. I got very used to radio, and radio opened me to a lot of opportunities with people. Even if you were not earning so much money, we used to get money from DJ mentions. And then I started to MC. And how I started to MC, it's Nyax who introduced me to MCing, and I thank him. I know he will watch this interview, and I just want to thank him for being part of my story, because he was my teacher in O-level. And so we met again in the field of radio, and he told me, I think you can actually MC. So I started to MC. That was my side hustle, and it would bring us a little bit of more money. And when I was doing radio work, it really opened me up to so many people, because with radio, you get to network with people, you get other opportunities. And at that time, we didn't have social media or anything, so radio was the thing. So at Nile FM, we also had BTN, that was a TV station, but it was just beginning, so all of us had to come up with concepts and ideas to do shows. I remember I did a couple of shows, but I was not so much into the TV segment. So I was more inclined to the radio. So when I went back to university, I used to keep coming back to do work. When we'd get our holidays were quite long, over 6 months. So I would come back to radio, I would work on radio, go back to school. So basically my life was between radio and being in law school. And during that time, I was able to raise enough money to take care of myself at school. I was able to raise enough money to take care of my family. And I knew at that time that I wanted to be a lawyer, but then I also had love for sales, marketing, and business, basically. So after my work on radio, I chose to focus on my school. I was at law school, and you needed a lot of concentration. You needed to focus if you had to get out successfully. So at that point, I really switched off to be at school. And once I completed school, before I completed, when I was in my third year, I needed to work. I just could not stand the thought of being for a 6 months holiday without working. So I decided to go to Gulu with my friend. One of my close friends was from Gulu. I'd never been to Gulu. I didn't know anybody in Gulu. The war had just ended, so the situation was still a bit fragile. But I decided I was just going to go. So I went to Gulu. I didn't even have where to stay, so I had to live with her. My goal was to look for what to do. That was it. So when I went to Gulu, I started to look for jobs at organizations, and then we chanced on USAID. At that time, they needed some people to work on a project, and thank God we were successful. We got in there and did that for a short time, for that part when we were for holidays, and then we went back for my 4th year, and I finished. So after 4th year, once we got out, there were people who wanted to go and do short courses. Everybody had something they wanted to do. For me, my mind was just on, I needed to make money. I needed to get something to do. And so I had also friends at that time who were in South Sudan. So before I finished my 4th year, I was already applying for jobs online. So I got an opportunity in Juba, and I went to Juba, and I was there until the time of my graduation. I actually just came back to graduate, and I went back to Juba where I was working. And around that time, my parents were really scared, because again, Juba was not yet very peaceful as it is now. There was a lot of instability, there was a lot of scare. So my parents were very, very worried about me. I remember my mom got so sick because she was really, really depressed about my choosing to go away. And I told them I would only come back if I find a job in Uganda. So I applied for a job at Refugee Law Project, and I remember when we were applying, I was telling my colleagues, let's apply, and they were saying, no, we have no experience, how can we apply for a job who shall not get? I said, no, let's just throw it there, let them be the ones to reject us. And I threw in my application, and by God's grace, I was called, and I went to do that interview, and I passed. So I got a job with Refugee Law Project, and I was based in Gulu, and that's when I knew that everything in life happens for a reason. When I went to Gulu to work, it was easy for me because that time I was in Gulu, I made friends. I really got used to the place. I knew every corner. So when I went back, it was very easy for me to settle in. It was very easy for me to adapt, and I had to focus on what took me there. So I gave it my very best, and I got headhunted for my next job while I was still doing this work. So the job I was now headhunted for was a better job, and at FIDA, Uganda, the Uganda Association of Women Lawyers, where I came in as a program officer at the time on a child protection program. And in being headhunted for that job, I knew that there were people who had been following my career journey, people who appreciated the way I do my work, how I do it. And I got into FIDA with an open mind. I didn't know what to expect. I had to move back to Kampala. But I got in there, and that is where I think most of my growth has been. A lot of my career life, especially in the field of law, was in FIDA. I joined as a program officer, but I left as a program manager when I was at the helm of my career at the organization. And in all these experiences that I had, especially from university, one of the things that I would say helped me a lot was prayer. First of all, I used to pray a lot for everything and in everything. Anyone who knows me knows that about me. I pray a lot about everything. I feel like if I don't pray about something, it won't work. So most times, everything I've gotten, I believe, has been by God's favor. Because even when I went to Gulu, I don't know what took me there in my third year, but God knew that after my fourth year, I was going to get a job in Gulu. And if I didn't know anything, I would have turned down that job, because it's not easy for many young people to agree to go to a place that is not familiar, a place where you have no family. Most people turn down jobs because of that. And me, I've never been the kind that is looking for comfort. As long as I'm going to be paid, I'm going to go. And so when I got into FIDA, I had the same attitude, and I got to travel around the country, around the globe when I was working at FIDA, networking, trying to find within me what area of law I wanted to really practice. And one thing that I agreed to and came to a conclusion after my university was that I wanted to really do legal aid. I wanted to be in more of programming, legislative drafting. I didn't want to be a street lawyer. I didn't want to be a practicing lawyer per se, for like a commercial lawyer, so to say. I always knew I had a passion for teaching. I had a passion for writing and advocacy. I was not the kind that really wanted to make money off of even being a lawyer. So thankfully, when I got into FIDA, there was a part for programming, and that's where I got grounded, and I started to grow there. And as I grew, again, part of my assignments, especially when I got my first promotion, was in advocacy. So I needed to work a lot with the media, do press statements, appear on the press, make sure that I coordinate any press-related activities. That was where my experience with the radio became more pronounced. And again, I realized that God does everything for a reason. I was on radio. I knew for sure my career was not in radio. Much as at some point people told my parents, why doesn't she just go and do mass communication, because she's very good with radio and things like that. But from childhood, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. So what I didn't know is in that journey, there would be a part where I would practice around media. So my experience on radio really, really helped me perfect my work in advocacy. I worked very easily with the media. I still do. And I got to learn some of the things along the way, especially on TV, because I was pretty much really very well grounded with issues to do with production and radio. But when it came to TV, it's something that I had to learn along the way through the work that I did. So as I started to settle, especially in terms of a job, my dream of having a side business or having a side income always remained with me. And I learned that from my mother, because she's an all-rounder. she's a teacher, but she does, a lot of other things on the side to enhance her income. Because if she didn't do that, we are not going to be able to even afford to be in good schools. So I always had it in mind that every time I made money, I needed to invest in something. So together with 4 other people, we started a company. It was a supplies company, and I knew that I was not very good in supplies, but I could prepare the bids, and also I could have the capital to invest in the company, but not doing the actual work. So the other partners of mine know that the other element of, supplies. So each one, as we assembled that team, everybody brought with them a unique skill that the other didn't have. So it didn't pick up maybe the first 2 years, but in the third year it picked up extremely well. And it's one of those companies that has sustained me. Like one of those ventures where I put money and I got back many folds. And getting into that business for me was a trial and error. I don't think I thought it through so much, but because I was around people who had the gift other than me, I was able to eventually appreciate the fact that this was not actually a random risk. It was something that was worthwhile, because I had to force myself to learn, to read, to research on how to make the company better. And so that is one of the things that kept me going. Even as I worked on the side, you're doing other things. That dream, that thing that I always did from my childhood never ever left me. And it's one of those things that I continue to practice up to now. Somewhere along my career journey, I have ventured into consultancies. I have worked with other organizations before, and in doing those things, it has been one favor from God, but also giving your very best in what you do. When you give your very best, then you don't have to prove yourself to people. Even when you appear on an interview panel, people already know you. They already know the quality of your work. They are worried about if they will afford you. They're not worried about whether you can do the work. So from FIDA, I went to work at an international NGO called Mexico, where I worked in 2 capacities. At first as a team leader for governance, and then the next time I came back to Mexico was as a consultant, a gender consultant, basically just to make sure that there were policies around gender issues and that we were mainstreaming gender in all our programs. And I took a break from the NGO world in 2019. And how I took a break from that work was I got married at the beginning of the year, and at that point I really had felt fatigued because I'd been going non-stop throughout my life. I've not got a break. You're working back to back from one thing to the other, and at some point I really just felt fatigued, and I took a break. And during that break, I started to find other passions, other things that I didn't know I loved to do until I had taken a break from everything. And that's where my love for decor was found. I started to do decorations from home, from scratch. I've always loved, beautifying things myself, things around me, but I didn't know that I could turn it into a money-making venture. It was something I didn't start it as a business per se. It was just something I did for passion. But as people kept appreciating the work, I turned it into a business. And in that 3 months break, I started to actually do business in decor. And I fell in love with it, and I'm still in love with it. We're just a year old, the decor company, which is a completely different company as well. But we've done a lot of business. Even during this time of Corona, it's one of those things that saved the day. If you needed a little cash here and there were always, opportunities to go and make other people happy and do business. And I've been able to build a team within that, and I don't have to always presently be there. My team members know what to do. Even if I'm not there, they will always deliver. So that is the other side of me that I discovered, but because I took a break. And again, that is a lesson for somebody out there, that there are moments in life you need to take a break. You need to hush the noise. You need to just not do anything and think. One time I was reading a book, and this gentleman was saying that every year he takes a 3 months break. He goes to a country, he sits there and thinks through. He thinks through things he loves, he thinks through things he wants to do. That's where he comes up with ideas. And then he comes back, puts these ideas to his team members, they shiv it, and then they come up with very innovative ideas to move their businesses forward. So when I read that, I realized that during that break, I had so much time in my hands. I could think, I could create. I was not worried about going to work, coming back, and it led me into art and creativity. And it is something that I'm passionate about and I intend to pursue, and perhaps in future retire to completely. Somewhere along all these journeys was my love for soccer. I had the love for soccer from when I was a child. My father always tells me that it's because our grandfather was a great footballer. He actually used to play for the national team, and they were the team that went to the Africa Cup of Nations. So his nickname was as a result of his excellent performance in football. So he always believed that that love would stream through us, the grandchildren, and he believed that one of us would perhaps have taken it as a career. Unfortunately, no. We have other people who excel in sports, but not really soccer. So when we were young, my dad used to take us to the video hall. We had a video hall in at a gentleman called Fanuel. He's passed away, at his place. So every time there was either Africa Cup of Nations or the World Cup, because technology wasn't advanced as it is, we didn't have access to sports if you were not from a certain class of families. Hello Caterpillars, my name is Mercy Grace Munduru. I'm the head of marketing, communications and public relations at Wonduparka Football Club. I hope you're keeping safe in these unprecedented times. I'm here to remind you that Corona is real, the numbers are surging up, and each one of us should take care of themselves. Football is nothing without its fans, and the only way we can have our fans at the beginning of the footballing season is if we all keep safe. As a club, we're anticipating a very beautiful beginning of season, and we can only be able to enjoy that if you and I keep safe. How do we keep safe? Let's make sure we're following the SOPs as issued by the Ministry of Health and World Health Organization. Make sure that you wash your hands as frequently as possible with soap or use sanitizer. Make sure that you maintain social distance, especially if you have to go into crowded areas. Above all, ensure that if you're going into a public place, you are wearing your mask, and ensure that you're wearing your mask correctly, because wearing your masks will lower your chances of acquiring COVID-19. Please keep safe. So you'd have to go to a video hall and watch with other people. So my dad used to take all of us as children to go and watch football with him. And that's how each one of us, the children, got to fall in love with football. We had to understand football. He would deliberately teach us the basics of football, what to look out for on the pitch and things like that. So along the way, we got to follow the English Premier League. Each one of us coincidentally chose different teams. So for me, I chose Arsenal, of course. My dad himself is a Chelsea person. My younger brother is a Liverpool fan. My mom is Chelsea as well. So each one of us really has different teams. I don't know how it turned out. You'd think because he's the one who got us into football, we'd all support his team, but well, we all chose different teams. So even while I was in my O-level in Munigals, I used to leave school to go and watch football. I was very passionate, and I always got into trouble for escaping to go and watch football, which is something I really, really just loved to do. And anyone who knows me, anyone who has gone to school with me, knows me for football. They know me for Arsenal. Whether it's a teacher, whether it's a head teacher, whether it's my classmates, whether it's my friends, the one thing that all my schoolmates from primary to university know me for is football. There's no one who doesn't know that I love football so passionately. So somehow, during my work life, I used to still watch football, but mostly on weekends because of my busy schedule. But I'd never really followed local football. I remember one time we were in Gulu for work, and my driver, the work driver, told me, "Oh, there's a team from your place. It's called Onparka FC, and it's a good team. It has been beating teams, and they're coming to play in Lira." I think it was against Sporting. So he told me we should go and watch since there's nothing we're doing. So we drove from Gulu to Lira. I watched the game, and of course for him, because he was from the north, he wasn't supporting Onduparaka. And I remember there were fans. The fans that I remember were from Kampala. Most of those boys are in Arua Park. They were at that game. So we came to watch that game, and I went back and I was like, oh my God, there's local football happening. We actually have a team from our end that is playing, And since then, I knew that there was a club like that, but there was nowhere to follow the journey from. The next time we were coming from Karamoja, we slept in Soroti. So we drove from Soroti on our way to Kampala and decided to have lunch in Bale. Coincidentally, again, Onduparaka was playing in Bale, and there was talk all over. It was a very heated game, and there was talk all over that there's this team that has come from Arua. It's a very tough team and all of that. Then the driver told me, you know what, let's first watch that game. We shall continue to Kampala. Oh, we sleep here and we go the following day. Somehow that's how we ended up watching that game. And I remember very well the winning goal that Shaban scored. I mean, that was the day I really fell in love with the club. So since then, I deliberately began to follow the journey of the football club, just as somebody from West Nile who already loved football, and somehow there was just something to distract me. Then coincidentally, in my friends, there were many people who loved football as well, and one of my friends was a KCCA fan, though he's from West Nile. So when I told him about, Onduparaka and the two games I'd watched and things like that, he said, man, I need to watch the next game. Make sure you let me know. So their next games, which were, I remember when they played Water, I also watched that game. And then there was now when they were qualifying in the big league, especially, I watched the game at Entebbe, the one against Villa, up to now the finals. Like, there was really no game I missed, even if I was sick. And at that point, there was really a lot of momentum around the club, and there was a lot of excitement, there was a lot of buzz. So I needed to be part and parcel of, the fans who were following this football club. So along the way, I met Honorable Atiku, who I had known very closely because my first project at FIDA was on child protection, and we used to work directly with Parliament, the Uganda Parliamentary Forum for Children, where he was the vice chair. So he told me he's the patron of the club, and he asked me if we could fundraise for the club at that time. So I was like, of course, I can tell my friends. I excited to tell everybody, and decided to collect money, and it was just fun and excitement. And after Onduparaka qualified for the UPL, there was a WhatsApp group which was created. We were all added to that group, and as fans, we just kept engaging. So when we got wind of the fact that they needed financial support to get to the next level, there were a group of people who selected funds to support with fundraising initiatives. So they created a separate group, and I was included in that group. That is how my journey with Onduparaka in terms of football administration actually began. So as fans, we started to think about fundraising strategies, and because I'm a friend to a couple of celebrities, especially musicians, my role was to make sure that they were on board, and other celebrities, so we could raise money for the club as fans. So somehow, as we were doing this, I've been in a certain sports group called Sports Arena for a long time. In that group, we have sports journalists from all over Africa, Uganda, and it's really a sports group, a purely sports group, and all the sports pundits and all are in that group. So when Onduparaka was in the limelight, they needed people who they could interview on their shows. And somehow, the proprietors of the club, as I got to know later, were in Arua. So I remember there's this show on Urban TV, and the presenter approached me because he's in that group as well. He said, Mercy, I need you to come on this show. I said, but I don't work at the club. I don't know anything about the club. Me, I'm just a fan. He said, no, I want you to come as a fan. and you just, appear on the show. So I called a friend of mine, Patrick Ogwa, and I said, there's this thing happening. Why don't you go? I don't know anything about this club beyond being a fan of it. And he said, no, I can give you all the information you need, but you have to be the one to go because I think you can do it. So I went to that show, and it turns out it was great. And after that show, we started to get opportunities for the club. And I mean, to cut the long story short, one of the people among the fans who were fundraising, after we had raised money through our fundraising initiatives, told me, Mercy, I would like for you to join me in fundraising for this club beyond what the fans are doing. So I told him, how am I supposed to do that? He said, oh, I know the chairman of the club. I'll talk to him and I'll think that we can do something for them. So he introduced me to the chairman. I remember they added me to the management team, and then the chairman inboxed me and said, from today onwards, you're in the management team. I was in shock because I didn't even expect it. I didn't know what sports management meant. I was really not prepared for something like that. So somehow Babu Michael, who is that person, helped me a lot because he is the reason I was there. And he really mentored me into what to do, how sports management happens. And we started to write proposals, and thank God the Betway one was successful. Same as MTN, the things we went through to get that, that's a story for another day, but basically it launched me into sports management. So I got into a completely new field, and it's one of the areas that I've predominantly been known in as well. It has come with its own challenges, it has come with its own leaps and bounds. And one of the significant things that I really put in my bag is being able to contribute to the growth of something I loved just for being something from West Nile. So being part of the building blocks for the football club is one of the highlights for me of my career. And being at this club has also taught me a lot in terms of building my character. I used to be a careless lover. I always take things for face value because of the kind of family I was raised in. I am always giving, and my heart is just all out there. I used to wear my heart on my sleeve all the time, and somehow getting into sports management really built my character, especially patience, being prayerful, and also just understanding the value of working not for money. If you look at my story, I've always been pursuing, wanting to make sure that I pursue money and have it and be comfortable. That was always, my driving factor. But sports management killed that. It brought me back to a place where your focus is more of how to make other people happy, how to put the priorities of others before your own, and looking at the bigger picture of what am I doing for my community. How do I build a legacy out of what I'm doing? So I sort of built my character beyond who I am as a lawyer and as other things as a business person to really a whole different world that has its own dynamics. You're managing emotions of so many people, and you are always, caught on the wrong side. There's people judging you, saying all sorts of things about you. But at the end of the day, you have to build this thing without relenting. You have to focus, you have to still deliver, you have to wake up every day, put a smile on your face, pray harder and work harder. So in terms of really that area of my life, I want to say it's one of the most enriching parts of my life that has taught me, that has built me in terms of character. It's a journey that's ongoing, but it's also a journey of learning and being able to assemble a media team and seeing how everybody is growing out of the media team to become successful people in their own field and building their own personal brands out of being part of this media team. It's my greatest success, because building other people is the greatest form of success. Being able to put people in a place where they can grow on their own. And in my career, I've never gotten a chance where I can mentor people to a point where they are able to grow and thrive beyond their potential, and just watching them evolve and be the best version of themselves. I think as a young person, for me, that is one of the things I'll always tick in my bucket, to say that this is success for me, and it's something that I want to continue to work on. And the other good thing that came out of that club, of course, is the fact that I met my husband through that club, and I got married. We have a son, and that is one of the highlights of my life, because there's having all of these things, being an achiever and being able to tick boxes, but to have people in your life who ground you, to have somebody with whom you can share your pain, somebody with whom you can share your successes, somebody with whom you can build your life, is a very rare thing to find, but also it's a very important part of everybody's life. And that part of my life has also continued to develop my character, because to be able to perform at your job, to be able to perform in your business, you need a very strong support system. You need a very strong social system. I can say out of my entire life story, I may not be exactly where I want to be, but I am way, way, way far from where I thought I would be at this age. I am in a place where I am comfortable. I don't know how community measures success, but I would say I'm very comfortable where I am in life. I am in a place where I do not lack, by God's grace. I'm in a place where I am able to take care of myself and those around me without being uncomfortable. And that for me is my measure of success. It's not about having much more than I can spend, but it's just about being comfortable enough to say all the things I worked for were not in vain. They're able to pay my bills. They're able to make me give to others. They're able to make me mentor other people. And I am always inspired by my own life story, because growing up from Arua, growing up from a family that is not well-to-do, a family that is, middle, and you've not had all the privileges that other people have, and being able to come from that background and to be where you are, to be able to sit on tables with people of different caliber, to be able to be recognized for different things in the community, is an inspiration to young people, especially from West Nile, that we can make it out of here. You don't need so much. It's just the heart and the drive and the belief you have in yourself that I can make it. People think that to be successful, you have to come from a well-to-do home. You have to go to the best schools. I'm not one of those believers in the fact that, being from a particular school makes you automatically a successful person. I believe success is independent of that. It's an individual's really drive to want to be successful. So I believe every person has that within them, that drive, that passion, and that should be what pushes you from where you are to your next level. And I believe everybody, no matter who they are, if they decide that I want to be at point A after this number of years, you're going to get there. And it's just the determination that you have to be able to go there. I'm still growing in my career. I went back to school. I'm doing my master's, as I said at the beginning. And I'm still, I'm now at a whole different organization, in a better position, and doing a lot better. But I also think there's still so much more ahead of me to achieve. But to be able to get there is not something that is going to come on a silver platter. I still have to work hard. I still have to pray harder. I still have to be kind. I still have to be giving. I still have to learn. I still have to read. I still have to research, especially in the field of business, in my own field of civil society. Because new things are happening every day. So you cannot say you know so much and you're comfortable, so you're just going to show up to work every day. You have to grow. You have to challenge yourself to learn more. You have to study. You have to open your mind up to new things so that you're able to grow. In terms of my philosophies in life, the first would be the fear of God. I think there's nothing greater than the fear of God. Knowing God, and not just knowing Him, but making Him the center of everything we do, is the best thing and the best decision I ever made in my life. God has been at the forefront. I only applied for a job once. All the other jobs I listed that I've got have been headhunted. I've been headhunted for them. And I believe that is favor. That has nothing to do with anything. It's just purely God's favor. And it's because we pray. When we pray, God sees our heart and He gives you your heart's desire in everything, not just jobs, not just anything. Even if you want a good husband, even if you want a good home, even if you want good friends, it's prayer. The other is really having a vision board. I keep talking about this. It's important to have a vision board. You have to map out where you want to be at what point in your life and work towards that. It doesn't mean that having a vision board you will not fail at certain things. You'll fail. I've had multiple failures. I can't even count how many times I've failed, how many times I've incurred losses in my personal life, in my business life, in my career. But a vision board keeps you focused. You fall, you get up and say, I want to be at point A. I have to keep working. If this strategy didn't work, how do I get a new strategy to achieve the same goal? Also, surrounding yourself with the right people. We are who we surround ourselves with. This is one area of my life that I've struggled with. As I said, I've always been raised in love, and because of that, I'm very open-hearted, and I wear my heart on my sleeve. I was always friends with any and everybody because I thought everybody had the same heart as mine. Along the way, so many friends have betrayed me. So many people I've worked with have betrayed me. Other romantic relations have betrayed, and it made me learn the hard way that I needed to actually deliberately choose who I surround myself with. Now, you will never find me surrounding myself with people who do not add value to my life. Never. I would rather sit in my house and stare at space than be in a space where I'm with people who I do not align with. So, surrounding yourself with the right energy. I'm a believer in energy. If the energy around you is negative, you'll always be a negative person. If you surround yourself with positive people, people who believe, people who dream, you'll always automatically become a dreamer. You'll also become a positive thinker. So you have to surround yourself with the right people, and you have to do things from the right intention. As long as you're doing something out of a very evil or negative intention, you will never succeed. The other is learning to forgive and be kind to people. Forgiveness is a very tough thing, but if you don't forgive, you can't move forward. Your blessings are held somewhere. So I've learned to forgive, that even the people that have hurt me, I've let them go, and I've had to focus on, where I want to be and practicing kindness. At the club, at my job, wherever I work, I always tell people we have to give back. Because we take out so much from the society, we have to put it back. So you have to help people who you know are vulnerable. You have to give to people who you know do not have the same opportunities as you. You have to give people opportunity. You have to connect them. You have to contribute to their life. If you reach at this point in your life, you have to pull somebody's hand to reach that point or even higher than you. I don't believe that I have to be the best person. I believe that there are people who are better than me, and the people who have the potential of going way above me. So I don't mind pulling somebody up and making sure that they go even beyond me, because I know even if I do not materially benefit from their success, at least their story will have my name on it. They will always know in their hearts that, Mercy helped me. Mercy is the one who brought me here. Mercy is the one who showed me this. You'll always be part of their story. I also believe that people need to put their heart into what they do. Work more than you are paid. I want to tell you, every place I have worked, whether in a business, whether in my personal life or career, they'll pay you something. But if you don't work more than you are paid, you will never get to the next level. I read that from one of my favorite authors called Oji Mandino. He says you have to work more than you are paid. Because whereas your boss may not acknowledge or may not say thank you or may not even notice how much you're putting into what you do, God does, and He doesn't forget. So the next opportunity you're going to get will be twice more. And I've left jobs where you're at a job, you're called for another job, and the salary they're giving you is 3 times what you are getting. And yet you're going to do even less work than what you are doing. And I believe those are direct reflections of you giving more than you are paid. So whatever opportunity When I was selling SIM packs, I made sure I was excelling. When I was working on radio, I made sure that sometimes I was working over Christmas. If they needed someone to sit in for another person, of course everyone would be like, no, I can't. I would sit in. Whether it was late night, whether it was mid-show, I was always available. Even at my job, when they want to send someone to Karamoja or wherever, people will not want to go. But I'm always available. Yeah, I'm going, and I will go to Karamoja, and I will make Karamoja the best part of my life. So I don't despise. Even if you sent me to a bush, I'll go and make that bush a home. Yeah, and I want to speak in a special way to women. Being a woman, I look at myself and the journey that I've had to endure. The inequalities that women have to live with start from when we're children in the home. The amount of work you do is different and a lot more than what your brothers do, than what your father does, than what the male do. But if you as a woman is not determined to break those stereotypes by believing in yourself and going as far as you want to go, you become limited by those things that society wants you to do. I know that there are a lot of young girls who are enduring a lot of pressure. As I said, we're living in a world where the standard of living is getting high. Sometimes girls cannot meet their basic needs. Sometimes parents are so busy they don't even have time to emotionally bond with their children, so most of the girls find solace in relationships, in different people, and sometimes they end up hurt, they end up in very unwanted situations. I know that life is not as rosy as they want to make it look like, but I also believe as women we have strength that we cannot compare to any other. God has created us in a very unique manner. That's why he has given us all these responsibilities of mothering, of nurturing, of caring for those around us, but above all, the strength and the persistence to take whatever life throws at us with both hands and make the best out of it. So I want to encourage especially girls and girls from West Nile that it's not just me. There are many women who have come out of West Nile, out of the same homes, the same backgrounds that we've come from, and they are thriving. They've had to beat the odds to get there. You too can. There is nothing impossible if you put your heart to it. And of course, if you pray about it, there is nothing impossible. As a woman, you shouldn't settle. You should set certain standards for yourself. I remember one of the challenging times of my life, when social media had just come, and a lot of young girls were getting married and people were doing all of these things. Marriage is one of the yardsticks for women in our society, not just West Nile, in the entire world. So somebody created a page on Facebook and started to write negative things about girls in Arua, and then they said, these are the beautiful but unlucky girls. And they listed all of us. They put my picture, they put my name, and they were ridiculing girls who were not married at that time. And I think I was 28 at that time. I wasn't married. So they wrote that story. Of course, it was very hurtful that somebody was, making such a story and ridiculing another person. But the one thing I always knew was I was not married at that time, not because there were no men in my life, there were, but there are certain standards I set for myself that I was not going to settle for. And even while I was not married, as a woman, I was investing. I was making sure that I was getting something for myself. I was still working hard, taking care of myself. Even if I didn't have my own family, I was still having extended family and people who I could take care of in our community. At the right time, God brought me a husband, and I am happy now. And many girls I know, they can easily succumb to the pressures. And sometimes you give up your career, sometimes you give up your school, sometimes you give up your job because somebody is pressuring you. You have to be your own person. You have to make decisions. If you have to do your master's now, do it. If you have to go and work somewhere, go. Because at the end of the day, life is not going to stop for any of us. The same people that limit you are the same people who are not going to help you when you need something. So as women, let us find that strength within us, that strength that God gave us. Find that strength within you to keep pushing, to keep getting something on your own. And I must also say that these days,
men also want women who are able to bring something to the table, because at the end of the day we need to balance life. You never know what life could present tomorrow. You never know the person you're with life could take them away. What happens? So you have to be your own person and stand on your own feet and have certain things to your name and things that you can look back and be proud of. So I am a very firm believer in gender equality. I am a feminist. I practice feminist principles in my everyday life. In my family, I make sure that the feminist principles are at the core, whether with my house workers, whether with my in-laws, whether with my own children or my husband or my extended family. The feminist principles are at the forefront. We have to make sure that we create opportunities for both men and women, whether it's opportunities for work, opportunities for school, fair treatment, making sure everybody is thriving. I make sure that I balance it out, and I believe each one of us can. So I am very glad and thankful that Lulua TV chose me for this segment of my story. I know that there are people who can relate to certain parts of my story, and I just want to end by saying that my story has not been a rosy story. There have been a lot of detours along the way, but what remains with us is the lessons. It's not those tough times, it's not those challenges, but it's what we learn out of the challenges that make us the best version of ourselves. So thank you so much for watching, and I know we will meet another time, if not on that same show, in the future on a completely different segment of the show. Goodbye.